All right, there we go. Oh, I hate hearing my voice. We're good. Okay, so it's 6 o'clock. I'm going to get us started. Just a real quick introduction. Doesn't look like this is going to be a 400-person event. But my name is Carl Granrath. I'm the hearing examiner for tonight's hearing. The purpose of tonight's hearing is for me to gather evidence and testimony for the matter that's pending, create an official record from which I will make a recommendation. And from that record and my recommendation, your county commissioners will make the ultimate decision on this case. So, not seeing anyone here. I'm not sure if anyone's connected on Zoom. If they are, there will be an opportunity for public testimony. I'll do that when we get there. A little procedure, we'll have staff introduce the application. Applicant will have an opportunity to make their presentation for up to 30 minutes. Public testimony is limited to 5 minutes per person, and there is an additional 15 minutes for the applicant to rebut or comment or respond to any comments from the public. So with that, I'll just cut it short and get us straight to this. 6:02 p.m. I'll open the public meeting for CUP 22-0003 North McGuire Storage Edition. And we have Mr. Finkel, Planner 3, here representing the county. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening. For the record, Vlad Finkel with Kootenai County Community Development. This is a request for Sandra Cody for the approval of North McGuire Storage Edition, a mini storage facility or a rental warehouse. The request is to expand an existing use on site. The subject property is located at the intersection of North McGuire Road and West Stone Avenue. The parcel is approximately 5 gross acres in size. The net acreage is 4.6. However, if we account for half of the adjacent right-of-way from both public roads next to the property, this will get us over the 5 acres, 5 net gross acres required for this type of facility. The request is to expand an existing facility that was originally permitted in 1981 with a conditional use permit case number C-400-81. That report is part of the record and has been cross-referenced in the staff report for your review. As you may recall, it's very short and bare of much detail. Typically, when we have expansions of existing uses or facilities, what staff typically looks at is the sideboards and the scope of what has been approved and the proposed changes that are being requested. And then the recommendation is to have the applicant comply with original conditions as well as any additional or new requirements that the agencies or staff may impose. In this case, there was very limited information, so we had to basically acknowledge the establishment of use post the decision in 1981 and acknowledge that as the basis for the current improvements on the property, and then move forward with the current regulations. The subject property is fairly level. It is located over the Rathdrum Prairie aquifer, and it is on the prairie, so there's very little vegetation with respect to the proposed area of improvements, but there is some sparse vegetation in the area of the existing residence and where the detached shop is located on the east side of the property. There are currently 2 storage buildings. There are currently 2 storage buildings in the southwest corner of the property with some outdoor storage to the north of that. The applicant, as I go into the site plan, the areas for future improvements and additional buildings will be on the west portion of the 5-acre parcel. The current zoning designation is agriculture, and pursuant to our code, a conditional use permit for a mini storage or rental warehouse can be requested in the agricultural zone. The comp plan designation is transitional in this case. This is a very peculiar situation because you typically don't see transitional zoning adjacent to city limits. The way our code, or the way our comprehensive plan designations have been established historically is to have border designation adjacent to city limits. However, due to recent growth, the cities on the prairie, including Post Falls, Rathdrum, and Hayden, have been annexing a lot of land. In fact, the property to the west of the subject property across from McGuire Road, as of last year, was within the county. I processed a major subdivision to the north of that within the last couple of years, and it came to my attention that this was recently annexed by the city of Post Falls. And so this is very interesting because we currently don't have a mechanism in our code that would have an automatic update to the comp plan designation that would basically have an automatic change from transitional to border once property was annexed, and then it would make more logical sense that border designation would be next to city limits. And the reason I'm explaining this is to kind of give some background as to why you're seeing this, and in terms of the current designation and perhaps any compatibility concerns or any issues from the cities that may arise through the review process. The property is located within the area of city impact. It is in the share tier, which is very interesting because you would expect an exclusive tier to be adjacent to city limits. And like I said, we don't have a mechanism at this point to change that designation. But the exclusive tier does have much more restrictive standards for improvements, which require connection to sewer and water services, which would unlikely be supportive of this application, because that's not the case. Although they do have a connection to East Green Acres Water District, they don't have a connection to city sewer. Moving forward, this is the site plan of the existing improvements. You have these two storage buildings with some graveled area for accessibility on the southwest corner of the site. You have outdoor storage in this area. You have the residence and the shop, and as I show the next slide, the applicant is proposing to construct 4 additional buildings. 2 smaller buildings will be directly to the east of the existing 2 buildings, and 2 larger buildings will be directly to the north. The buildings will range from about 6,200 square feet to roughly 13,000 square feet. There will be no office or on-site restrooms for the benefit of customers. I'd like to point out that there is a statement about an office that was prepared originally by the applicant or perhaps their architect, but I did confirm with the owner this afternoon, and they don't have an office. Perhaps in the past, folks would drop off checks or money for leasing some of these units. But as you have read in the narrative, the applicant is currently in the process of building a website to have all the transactions be conducted online, including leases and fees. These are some of the photos of the property in question. The top top left one is depicting the access off of McGuire. The photo on top right is along Stone Avenue, and then you have 2 additional photos that I believe are along Stone Avenue as well. During the agency comment period, we solicited comments from all the jurisdictional agencies, and most of them really had no issues. We did have a request for some additional information with respect to traffic impacts from the Post Falls Highway District. I did confirm with them that the information that has been submitted by the applicant has satisfactorily addressed their concerns. And the only comment that they had is they would like to have the applicant retain access to the facility, to the storage facility off of McGuire, and that the access to the residents remain off of Stone Avenue to give some traffic flows predictability. None of the other agencies or cities had any concerns, City of Rathdrum and City of Post Falls and Hayden, because it's technically in the shared tier, really didn't bring up any issues. There was a comment from Avista to say that any improvements must be done outside of their utility easement. But other than that, really, it's pretty straightforward application. In fact, because it's technically an expansion of an existing use but not an establishment of a new one, it's much easier to make an analysis in terms of compatibility and consistency with existing conditions in the area, simply because it's been an established use for the last 4 decades. And I guess the expectation of the neighborhood is that it is a storage facility, and the expansion of that is going to be, while it will have impacts, it's not considered to be a brand new use that may have some sort of compatibility concerns if it was a brand new facility on site. We did have a couple of comments with respect to the applicant's proposed improvements. We do believe that the proposed expansion of the existing mini storage and rental warehouse facility will provide additional storage to meet the demands generated by the recent unprecedented growth in Kootenai County. And we have had a number of mini storage facilities approved throughout the county in recent years. One other comment that we did want to make is that pursuant to Kootenai County Land Use and Development Code, Article 4.6, landscaping, screening, and buffering, the landscaping requirements and buffering requirements from adjacent public rights of ways and adjacent residential parcels of land are a mandatory requirement for commercial, light industrial zones, but it may be at the discretion of staff as well as the hearing body or the elected officials imposed as a discretionary, at their discretion, to mitigate potential impacts, visual impacts. So one of the things that we did discuss with the applicant recently is that it was pointed out to them that we will be recommending landscaping along both public rights of ways as well as on the north side of the property. It appears that there's adequate room on the north end of the property to have a 15-foot wide buffer, landscaping buffer. However, based on the driving lane on the west side or along the west property line, there may be limited area. I think it's a little over 30 feet. So it doesn't seem like there would be sufficient room to have a 15-foot wide landscape buffer in that area, or even along Stone Avenue on the south end of the property. So the way we built in a condition is that they could request an alternative method of compliance under Article 8.4 606 to provide some landscaping along both road frontages. Ms. Cody had informed me that she did plant some shrubs along the existing area of improvements along Stone as well as McGuire Road. I think she has some barberries, some raspberries, and some other shrubs. They're neatly planted along both property lines, and she does have some irrigation lines in that area. My supervisor and I felt that it'd be appropriate to have some trees planted in between those shrubs, just to kind of give a little bit more of a buffer, visual buffer of the existing buildings and for newly proposed buildings. But I believe because of the discretion, we can use some flexibility as to the type of vegetation that she'll be required to plant through the site disturbance permit process. And we'll work with her closely should the application be approved. And condition of approval 8.07 addresses that. So unless you have any questions, I don't have anything else to add at this point.
Yeah, thank you for your thorough presentation. Just want to real quick ask a couple follow-up questions on this slide and what you just talked about with the visual buffer. So I guess just first and real quick, obviously this is the same parcel, so we're not requiring a vegetative screening between it and the residence. Just hypothetically, a boundary line adjustment or something, or a, short subdivision that could separate that. Would that
It's
even
not
be
an
possible?
It's not an option. The subject property is in the agricultural zone, and it is prohibited to subdivide the property in the agricultural zone. The minimum lot size in the agricultural zone is, of course, 5 acres. The closest zoning classification would be rural. It also has a 5-acre minimum lot size requirement. However, I think the more restrictive aspect of any further development on this property would be the fact that it's located over the aquifer and Panhandle Health District, and I believe our newly adopted ordinance has a maximum density of 1 dwelling per 5 acres. So in essence, they can't even have an ALU, an accessory living unit, because it would intensify or it would double the residential density on site. So any alteration to the property lines is not an option.
Okay.
It would draw the property to be less than the minimum lot size, and that would be a code violation, or it would be in violation of our regulations.
Okay. I just want to make sure that's not a problem for the future.
I don't believe so, unless it's annexed into the city limits, and then the city would be responsible to administer their regulations.
Okay. And so I did visit the site, and obviously this is an interesting case because it's an existing operation that's basically not up to current standards, which is fine. Mostly with the vegetative screening. So I understand and appreciate the condition that you wrote, and just I guess I'm more or less okay with the condition as written. I do want to ensure that, and I understand when you say that you're going to work with the applicant to, make sure the best job, is done. Yeah, using your discretion here, but I guess I saw a limited amount of the plan. I want you to talk a little bit more about, what may or may not be required with that. I'm asking you to speculate a little bit. I'm sorry, but.
Absolutely. So I think the width along McGuire, the 15-foot width, is clearly a concern to staff because there is a separation of approximately, as I recall, 30 or 32 feet. Obviously, if you have a requirement of 15-foot wide landscape buffer, you are reducing the aisle or the driving lanes both direction in half. So our concern is the fact that there's just not enough physical area to meet the current regulation based on the location of these two structures. We could ask the applicant to shift the two northern buildings further east, but I don't know if that really serves us any good because the location of these structures, they're trying to align these structures. And so we think that by adding additional trees along both road frontages in between where the bushes shrubs were recently planted would likely suffice. It's just, I don't think you can physically meet our regulations based on the limited space. Correct. So one of the things that's being pointed out by Ben Tarbutton is the fact that we will also have to run the landscape plan by the Post Falls Highway District to address sight distance and the visibility as you approach this intersection, both on Stone as well as McGuire. And so we'll have to coordinate with the Post Falls Highway District official on the type of vegetation that would not impede sight view as vehicles approach that intersection. And so I don't have a direct answer for you as to the type of vegetation, but I think we'll have to, work with our agency and our staff to implement something that would be feasible and safe.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Finkel. That's all the questions I have for you now. So the applicant, come right on up, let me know your name, and you're free to, you have up to 30 minutes. We're not required to take 30 minutes.
I just want to say that in reading the paperwork that Vlad has submitted to me, and I went online and read everything before the hearing today so that I knew for sure what was the expectations. And, reading through all of that gave me a good idea of the expectations that the county requires from, the highway district to the fire department and all of that. So I think I understand the expectations on my part, and, including the vegetation and everything. And I would agree with especially that the corner of Stone and McGuire, even now with the sign there that's been there since, 81, 83, something like that, before my time, I have to pull out very slowly when I go to that intersection so that I can see, with the sign being there now. So anything that is going to be further out is really going to be a problem with the visualization at the corner there, especially on McGuire Road. Stone Avenue, isn't applicable. So anyway, the other thing that I want to reiterate is about the office. And as I thought about the information that Mr. Finkel has provided to me, I just want to say that I think maybe it's a terminology. There isn't going to be an office where people come, but I will have my computer there. So, but in the house. So anyway, that was my, interpretation of the term office. So, so I don't have any other comments to make. Everybody's been very good about keeping me informed, and I really appreciate that that Kootenai County has worked with me so well, especially Vlad. He's just been great. So if you have any questions of me that you would like clarification, I'm more than willing to.
So to be extra clear, your office is not where members of the public and potential customers come. Okay.
Office is like the home
we're crystal
office.
clear on that now. Okay.
So
yes. Yeah, I guess I don't really have any further questions for you. I guess the condition of approval will having to do with the vegetative buffer. That's one of the requirements in our county code.
I totally get it.
Will be based on you and Vlad and the other officials working in good faith
And going back to the
balance these interests.
vegetation, the irrigation runs all the way from the house down Stone Avenue. And we added a soaker system that runs all the way to the property line on McGuire Road. So that one little section there that on the corner there on McGuire Road at the north side, that has vegetation in it as well right now. And the pyrocanthus, I don't know if Vlad, or if you're familiar, but we had a real problem with people breaking into the storage units on McGuire Road. It's like they pulled into the entry at night and would put a blanket or something over the barbed wire fence, and from their truck bed they could jump over. So I said when I was looking at the vegetation plan, the landscaping, I was saying, well, I need to do something that creates security, that is nice looking. And the pyrocanthus do, from my understanding, grow to 20 feet. And they are primarily planted on McGuire Road. I don't have anything down the north side of the property line at all. And then, like Vlad said, it goes about, where the current storage buildings are on Stone Avenue. So I totally hear you about the vegetation. I've lived there since 1996. And, I understand the feel of the neighborhood and, the neighbors. And so as I was telling Vlad, down almost to the corner of Stone and McGuire on Stone Avenue, there's wild asparagus that is growing there. And people stop by all the time to, so it really is an agricultural area. So anyway, that's all the comments I have.
Yeah, I did see the pyracantha in Vlad's report,
Well,
so I thought that was
I didn't even
interesting.
know what it was until the landscaper told me. So, I said, well, that works.
Well, that completes the story for me then, so
Okay.
it sounds like a good choice.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just, I guess I'll stop there and, if it's approved by your county commissioners, implore you to continue to work with Vlad and the county and the other agencies.
Okay.
So yeah, that's all the questions I have.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Callahan, sir, are there any members of the public online who wishes to comment? No? Okay. All right, with that, I have no more questions for staff, so at 6:27 PM, I will call the public meeting closed for CUP 22-0003, North McGuire Storage Edition. And my recommendation will be submitted to staff within 2 weeks, and they will schedule it before your county commissioners for their deliberations and decision. So.